Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere gritty, wild, and entirely unsanitary. Imagine this, you wake up to the creak of wooden beams above your head, the scent of hay and something, distinctly horsey wafting up your nostrils. You sit up too fast and bang your head on the low rafters. Dust falls in your eyes. You are not in your bed. You are not even in your century. Welcome to the Wild West, no cell service, no toothpaste, no rules. Outside, the sun is already climbing, sharp and golden, cutting through the slats of the barn like a branding iron through hide. The air smells like leather, manure, and gunpowder. Somewhere, a rooster with a smoker's cough crows. You're in a loft above a stable, and the horses below are already fidgeting, stomping their hooves like they know you don't belong. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stumble down from the hayloft, brushing straw from your shirt, trying not to step in anything wet and steaming. The barn door creaks open like a saloon hinge in a Clint Eastwood movie. Outside, the world looks baked in sepia tones, faded wood, dry scrub, distant mountains, and the kind of horizon that dares you to try walking to it. There's a town maybe a quarter-mile away. It's barely more than a scatter of buildings, most of them leaning, one of them on fire in a sort of lazy, we'll get to it, kind of way. There's a church with a bell tower, a saloon, a general store, and a few homes built out of wood, sweat, and possibly termites. A tumbleweed dramatically rolls by, because of course it does. You start walking. Every step kicks up dust. Your boots, wait, are those your feet? Why are you wearing someone else's cowboy boots? Never mind, your feet hurt, but the important thing is you're heading into a town where, statistically speaking, someone is probably about to get shot. The town is quiet, except for the buzzing of flies and a distant honky-tonk piano that sounds like it's being played by a drunk ghost. People give you the side eye as you pass. A boy leans against a water trough, chewing on a stick. A dog with 3 legs barks once, then lies back down like even barking costs too much energy. You're a stranger, and in the Wild West, strangers are either problems, solutions, or dead by sunset. Fun fact, the real Wild West period only lasted about 30 years, from the end of the Civil War in 1865 to the closing of the frontier in the 1890s. Not as long as the movies make it seem, but in that short time, legends were born, myths were minted, and hygiene, well, we'll talk about that later. Spoiler, don't shake anyone's hand. You pass a poster tacked to a post. Wanted, dead or alive. You squint at the drawing. The guy has a mustache and looks vaguely like everyone here, including possibly yourself. Historians still argue whether most of these wanted posters were serious law enforcement tools or just part of the myth-making machine. Many bounties were never claimed. A lot of the bad guys were barely more than nuisances. But hey, a good story needs villains, right? The saloon doors creak. Inside, someone coughs wetly. You take a deep breath, and immediately regret it. The air smells like spilled whiskey, feet, and boiled eggs. You hesitate. But out of the corner of your eye, you spot something shimmering in the distance, water. No. It's the general store's windows reflecting the morning sun. Still, you're parched. You haven't had water since you woke up in that barn, and dehydration is creeping in like a slow ambush. One last thing to remember, this place has no plumbing, no refrigeration, and a relaxed relationship with laws. You're in the Wild West now. And you've got dust in your teeth. You push through the saloon doors, which swing behind you with a dramatic creak, as if even the building wants everyone to know you've arrived. Inside, the light shifts. It's darker than you expected. Smoky. The room smells like whiskey, sweat, floorboards, and something suspiciously like pickled onions left in the sun. Heads turn. A few men glance up from their poker hands. A woman in a faded red dress leans against the bar, smoking a pipe and staring directly at you like she's trying to figure out whether you're trouble or just bad at walking in boots. You make your way forward, trying not to trip over the spittoon. It's already seen heavy use this morning. The floorboards groan under your feet, either from old age or a sense of foreboding. Behind the bar is a man with a mustache wide enough to shade a horse. He's polishing a glass with a rag that looks dirtier than the glass itself. He grunts. Whiskey or water? You want to say latte, but that probably gets people shot here. You mumble something resembling whiskey, and he slides over a cloudy glass filled with a warm amber liquid. You stare at it. It could be whiskey. It could also be kerosene. Either way, it burns. Now the piano starts up again. You glance over. It's an upright piano with several broken keys. The man playing it is missing a tooth, but compensates by being wildly enthusiastic. The tune is technically music, but only just. To your left, the poker table is getting tense. A man with a scar running from ear to chin slams down 3 cards with theatrical flair. Another man tips his hat back and reveals a pistol tucked into his waistband. Everyone freezes for a moment, then they all laugh and slap the table, like this kind of casual threat is part of the fun. Welcome to your first real taste of a saloon. Saloons were the social hubs of the Wild West, though they weren't all dusty gambling dens. Some were fairly respectable. Others were just glorified sheds with liquor licenses, and not always legal ones. Most towns had at least one, sometimes several, depending on the thirst of the local population. Historians still argue whether they were centers of vice or necessary gathering spots in towns where nothing else was open after 6 p.m. This one leans firmly toward center of vice. At a side table, a man is snoring into a bowl of chili. The smell is sharp. Another man is loudly arguing with a parrot in a cage above the bar. You can't tell who's winning. And someone's cooking something behind a curtain that crackles like frying meat but smells more like despair. A woman approaches you. She's wearing a bustle dress with frayed edges, a pistol tucked neatly into a leather hip holster, and boots that look better traveled than you. You knew? She asks, not unkindly. Her voice is rough like creek gravel but strangely reassuring. You nod. Name? She asks. You open your mouth, but nothing comes out. Not because you don't know, but because you suddenly realize it doesn't matter. Names out here are like currencies, only good if someone else recognizes them. Instead, you shrug. She smiles. Smart. Another bark of laughter erupts from the poker table as someone flips a coin and accuses another player of cheating. The bar quiets. You freeze. You do not want to be mistaken for anyone else right now. But the sheriff walks in. He's tall, narrow as a fence post, and looks tired in that particular way that says he's dealt with everything from cattle rustlers to ghosts. He nods at the bartender, ignores the poker players, and then looks straight at you. You new in town? He asks, using almost the exact tone the woman did, but this time, it's not a question. It's an invitation to explain yourself. You nod again, because your mouth is dry and your brain has gone temporarily on strike. The sheriff squints at you, then at your boots. Those look like Charlie's boots. You glance down. Oh. Well, he mutters. Charlie won't be needing them, I guess. He tips his hat and walks past you like that explains everything. Quirky historical tidbit, many people in the Wild West reused clothing, gear, and even names. If someone died or disappeared, their belongings were often up for grabs. Towns rarely asked questions, especially if the alternative meant letting something useful go to waste. So yes, you might actually be wearing a dead man's boots. Congratulations. You sit at the bar and take another sip of the whiskey, or lighter fluid, who can say. It burns less this time. Either you're getting used to it, or it's melting your taste buds. Careful with that, the woman says, nodding at your drink. You'll see God if you drink too fast. You raise an eyebrow. Not in a spiritual way, she adds. In a you'll die way. You look around the saloon once more. The piano man winks at you. The parrot screeches something deeply offensive in pirate slang. Someone yells, 2 bits on the next hand, and laughter bubbles up again. Outside, the sun climbs higher. The town waits. But for now, you're inside the heart of it, where the whiskey is warm, the people are unpredictable, and the sheriff might be watching your every move. You swirl the last bit of your drink and realize something both comforting and terrifying. You're here. Really here. And the West doesn't care who you were before. You step back outside, momentarily blinded by the glare of late morning sun. The saloon doors clatter behind you like applause for surviving your first encounter. The air is dry, metallic, and full of buzzing flies. Dust clings to your clothes, your boots, your teeth. Basically, if it has a surface, it has dust. You take a moment to glance down at your reflection in a shop window. It's not good. Your clothes are ill-fitting, borrowed, or stolen, depending on how Charlie would feel about you taking his boots. The shirt's missing a button, your pants are a size too large, and the hat, well, the hat was probably a very brave raccoon once. It's more of a suggestion of a hat now, really. You realize you'll need to blend in. Out here, standing out gets you one of 3 things: robbed, arrested, or asked to entertain at the saloon. None of those appeal right now. So, next stop, the general store. The bell above the door tinkles weakly as you enter. The inside smells like flour, old rope, leather, and lard. Shelves are stacked high with goods, everything from tinned peaches to buckshot to hair tonic that promises to cure melancholy, baldness, and female hysteria. You don't even want to know how. Behind the counter is a woman with a tight bun and a sharper tongue. Help you with something, sugar, she asks without looking up from her ledger. You nod. Clothes. Ones that fit. She sizes you up with the speed of someone who's been outfitting misfits since the gold rush. Back wall. Men's gear on the left. Don't bleed on anything. The men's section consists of about 4 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and an alarming number of belts. You pick out something only mildly itchy and make your way to the dressing curtain, which doesn't reach the floor and definitely doesn't offer dignity. Now, here's the thing about Wild West fashion, it wasn't just about looking tough, it was about surviving long days in brutal conditions. Layers helped keep off dust and sunburn, chaps protected legs from thorny brush, and bandanas doubled as masks, filters, towels, and occasionally slings. Historians still argue whether cowboy fashion was born from utility or from Hollywood's later romanticization, but out here, no one's asking for runway critiques. You come out wearing something sturdier. The shirt is rough cotton. The pants are canvas. The boots, still Charlie's, have now begun to mold to your feet, which is both disgusting and slightly heartwarming. The shopkeeper eyes you again. Better, she says. Still look like you got dropped by a tornado, but at least now it's a well-dressed tornado. You grunt something that might be thanks, pay her with coins you found in the coat pocket, and step back outside. The sun's higher now. It's hot, but everyone's still wearing long sleeves. You notice why almost immediately, biting flies. One lands on your neck and you flap it away, but it leaves an itchy welt behind. Everyone's skin out here tells stories, sun-scorched, calloused, bitten, bruised. Survival isn't glamorous. You wander down the street, passing people who've made peace with this brutal climate. A man saunters by in a wool coat, yes, wool. He nods at you and spits with frightening accuracy into a tin can. A woman in a prairie bonnet walks by, her skirt brushing the dirt like a mobile broom. And now comes the corset. You spot a dressmaker's sign swinging above a crooked doorway. Curious, you peer inside. Rows of gowns, petticoats, chemises, and corsets hang neatly, like ghostly torsos waiting to be filled. Corsets in the Wild West weren't optional for most women, they were expected. Whether working on a farm or running a boarding house, women wore these stiff garments day in and day out. And while we often hear about fainting from tight laces, most were worn looser than Hollywood dramas suggest. Still, breathing was more of a suggestion than a guarantee. A seamstress eyes you warily, then shrugs. You look like you'd survive a corset. Barely. You decline politely. She chuckles. Suit yourself. Most folks don't last a week here without one kind of armor or another. As you step back outside, you realize your armor will have to be your attitude, plus Charlie's boots, this new shirt, and your absolute refusal to wear anything that requires lacing assistance. You're halfway back to the saloon when a breeze kicks up, sending dust spiraling down the street. You pull your bandana over your nose instinctively, and just like that, you look the part. Another fun fact, cowboys and settlers didn't wear bandanas just to look cool. These pieces of cloth were used as dust masks, slings, pot holders, and napkins. They were, in fact, the Swiss Army knives of fashion. You glance around. The people walking these dusty roads may not look glamorous, but their clothing tells you everything. Patched pants mean hard work. Leather gloves mean someone who handles cattle. Clean shoes. Tourist. Or gambler. Or undertaker. And now, looking at yourself in the reflection of the saloon's window once again, you almost blend in. Almost. You still don't smell right, clean, maybe. That's suspicious. You step into a patch of sunlight and let the dust coat you properly. Now you smell like old leather, horse, and barely diluted sweat. Perfect. You lean against a wooden post, watching the town unfold around you. In the distance, a stagecoach kicks up a cloud of dust as it barrels toward town. A boy chases a runaway chicken. Someone yells about a stolen pie. You smile, despite the heat. You're dressed, you're dusty, and you're ready. You still might not survive, but at least you'll look like you belonged here when you don't. Your stomach growls loud enough to make a passing mule glance at you in judgment. Right. Breakfast. You haven't eaten since, whenever it was you woke up in that hayloft. And if there's one thing you've learned about time in the Wild West, it's that it moves on its own schedule. Fast when you're in danger. Slow when you're hungry. You head back toward the saloon, but this time you make a detour to a squat wooden building with a cracked sign reading Grub Shack. The U is barely hanging on. A man outside flips something in a cast iron pan over a fire. It hisses ominously. He nods at you. 2 bits for a plate. For if you want something, you won't regret. You look down at the coins in your palm. They're mismatched, possibly foreign, and definitely not up to code. But you hand over 2 bits anyway. Regret, at this point, seems inevitable. The man scoops something brown, bean-shaped, bean-smelling, possibly bean-adjacent, onto a tin plate. Beside it, he drops a biscuit that's harder than most forms of currency and slightly misshapen. He then spoons what might be scrambled eggs onto the plate, although it's possible he just found a yellowish thing near the stove. You find a seat on a rickety bench beside a man who is either asleep or extremely focused on chewing. The table is scarred, uneven, and decorated with initials from various previous diners. Someone's carved a whole sentence, "If you can read this, you're too sober." You dig in. The beans are gritty. The biscuit is dry enough to qualify as a choking hazard. And the eggs, well, they taste more like suggestion than substance. But after a few bites, your body reluctantly begins to believe it's being fed. You can almost feel your limbs thanking you. A dog sits nearby, watching your every move. You toss him a crumb. He sniffs it and walks away like you've offended him personally. Now, while you chew, slowly, cautiously, let's talk about food in the Wild West. Contrary to popular belief, the cowboy diet wasn't all steaks and whiskey. Most meals consisted of beans, biscuits, bacon, and coffee. If you were lucky, there might be potatoes. If you were really lucky, there might be something green that hadn't wilted into oblivion. Historians still argue whether settlers suffered more from vitamin deficiency or sheer boredom when it came to their diet. One of the men beside you slaps his tin cup onto the table. "That's the best damn coffee I ever had," he grunts. You sip yours. It's hot, black as a moonless night, and tastes like it was filtered through someone's socks. Still, it wakes you up either from the caffeine or the trauma. Another man joins the table. "Where you from?" he asks, mouth full of food. You consider lying, but it's not like you can say, "Oh, the 21st century." So you just shrug. "Back east." He nods. "Figures. You're too clean. You'll fix that." You glance down. Dusty, yes. Bloody, not yet. Hopefully never. "Heading out with the drive?" he asks. "The drive?" you echo, between cautious sips of bean sludge. "Cattle drive," he says. "We're moving the herd out tomorrow. North, past Dry Gulch. Always looking for extra hands. You any good with cows?" You consider this. Your only experience with cows was once petting one at a petting zoo. It licked your elbow and you panicked. So, maybe not. "I can learn," you say instead. He grins. "Everyone can. Until they can't." He claps you on the back and walks off. A cloud of dust and biscuit crumbs follows him. You finish your plate and bring it back to the cook, who nods once and takes it without a word. You suspect that's the highest compliment you'll get from anyone today. Outside, the town is starting to wake up more fully. A bell rings somewhere. Horses snort in protest at being saddled. A man sells newspapers for a penny, shouting headlines like "Gold Found Near Black Hills," and "Mayor Bitten by Own Ferret." You stand there, hands in your borrowed coat pockets, feeling the weight of breakfast settle like a brick in your gut. The sun is higher now, hotter, and you realize that if you're going to survive out here, even for a few days, you'll need more than just sturdy boots and questionable coffee. You'll need work. And from the sound of it, there's cattle to drive. Quirky historical tidbit: cowboys on cattle drives often ate the same thing for weeks. Chuckwagon cooks became legendary figures, part chef, part medic, part therapist. They could fry beans over a fire, patch a wound, and tell stories that made even the youngest hands sleep with one eye open. The man you spoke to earlier walks past again and nods. Be at the stockyard at first light. Don't be late. Cows don't wait. And just like that, you're hired. Maybe. Probably. Possibly. Either way, it looks like your breakfast was also your job interview. You tip your hat to no one in particular and start walking. The dust follows. Your belly is full, for now. Your future is uncertain. But at least you've taken the first step. Next stop, 800 miles of hooves, dust storms, and cows with attitudes. You wake before dawn the next morning to the sound of a rooster with something to prove. The air is cold, sharp with dew, and your limbs ache from sleeping on what you now realize was a lumpy feed sack. Welcome to cowboy life. You make your way through the sleeping town, boots crunching quietly on gravel. Everything is tinted blue in the pre-sunrise haze. The stockyard sits at the edge of town like a held breath, full of movement but unnaturally quiet. The only sounds are snorting cattle, creaking harnesses, and the occasional whispered curse. A man with a weathered face and a beard that may contain wildlife nods at you. You the greenhorn? You hesitate. I guess so. He spits. Ain't no guessin' with cows. Grab a rope. You do as you're told, though it takes you a full minute to figure out how to hold it in a way that doesn't make you look like you're trying to gift wrap a cow. The man, his name's Hank, apparently, doesn't say anything else. just hands you a canteen and a crusty-looking biscuit. Breakfast. Mount up, someone calls, and you follow the others toward the horses. Now, here's the thing, you've never ridden a horse. Not really. Not unless you count that one summer pony ride at a birthday party when you were 7. But no one asks if you know how. Someone just slaps a saddlebag over a mare and gestures for you to climb aboard. You do. Badly. The horse shifts under you like it knows you're faking it. You grip the reins like they might bite. Someone chuckles behind you. Don't squeeze her like a watermelon, she'll take off. You loosen your knees. Barely. With little fanfare, the drive begins. You and about a dozen other riders push forward, flanking a slow-moving sea of cattle. Dust rises in curtains. The sun creeps over the hills in a blaze of gold. The moment feels cinematic, until your horse decides it wants to walk sideways, and you nearly fall into a cow. You right yourself, coughing. The dust gets into your eyes, your mouth, your very soul. A man rides past, bandana pulled up over his face like an outlaw. Keep them pointed north, he calls, as if you have any idea which way that is. Still, you follow. A few hours in, your thighs hurt in ways you didn't know thighs could. Your lower back feels like it's been personally insulted. The cows are slow, stubborn, and louder than expected. One moo sounds like an existential cry for help. Here's a historical truth that's a lot less glamorous than the movies make it seem: cattle drives were long, grueling, and often pretty boring. The drive you're on. It'll last weeks. Average pace, about 10 to 15 miles a day. Average smell, somewhere between old stew and gym socks. Historians still argue whether cowboy culture was born from Spanish vaquero traditions or developed independently, but either way, by the mid-1800s, the cattle drive was the beating heart of frontier survival. Beef meant money. And cows, unfortunately, did not herd themselves. By midday, you've learned a few things. 1. Cows do not respect your personal space. 2. Saddle sores are not a myth, they are a slow, creeping reality. 3. No one's going to carry your weight. Not out here. You either become useful fast, or you become a story someone tells while laughing around the campfire. A rider sidles up next to you. He's younger than the rest, freckles across his nose and a hat 2 sizes too big. Name's Wiley, he says. I do rope tricks. Watch. He immediately drops his rope. His horse steps on it. You both laugh. Finally, something that doesn't involve manure or chafing. Later, you help set up camp on a dry patch of land where a lone mesquite tree offers the world's tiniest patch of shade. The cook, called Cookie, because originality is not the West's strong suit, starts preparing dinner from the back of a chuck wagon. Beans, again. With a side of beans. Dessert? Burnt beans. You chew slowly, watching the sky turn orange and then purple. Coyotes begin to howl in the distance, their voices eerie and beautiful. You're covered in dust. You smell like horse. Your legs hate you. But somehow, the quiet between wind gusts feels sacred. You're part of something now. Something big. Even if it's just moving cows from point A to point B. Quirky historical tidbit: cowboys often sang to cattle at night to soothe them, songs, humming, even whistling. It kept the herd calm and discouraged stampedes. You'll hear it later, drifting on the breeze, broken melodies from tired men keeping thousands of pounds of meat from panicking in the dark. As night falls, you're handed a blanket and pointed toward a patch of ground near the wagon. No tents, no mattresses, just dirt and the hope it doesn't rain. You lie back, staring up at stars so bright they look fake. Your muscles scream. Your eyes sting. A cow farts audibly nearby. But you're smiling. Somehow, against all logic, you're surviving. You may even be doing all right. For now. The first thing you feel when you wake is cold. The kind of cold that starts at your spine and seeps into your lungs before you've even opened your eyes. You've slept on the ground, again, and your body feels like it's been steamrolled by a wagon, then politely handed back to you by a mule. You sit up slowly, brushing dirt from your face. Dew glistens on your borrowed coat. The stars have vanished, and a silver light creeps across the horizon, stretching shadows across the camp. You can smell the fire before you see it, burning mesquite, sharp and smoky, mixed with the faint sweetness of beans cooking for the 5th consecutive meal in a row. A few cowboys are already moving about in the half-light. Some check the horses. Others warm their hands on tin mugs of coffee. No one speaks much. Maybe because it's too early. Maybe because out here, silence is as normal as the dust. You join Wiley by the fire. He hands you a mug with a grunt that could mean, good morning, or, you snored. You sip. The coffee is, somehow, worse than yesterday's. Wiley yawns, then points to the distance. Coyotes were loud last night. You nod. You'd heard them too, high-pitched wails rising and falling like ghost stories sung by the prairie itself. They kept you awake for hours, long after the fire had died down. First time sleeping outside, he asks. You glance around, considering. First time sleeping with one eye open, you say. He laughs. That'll stay with you. After breakfast, the drive begins again. The cattle are sluggish at first, lowing and stomping as the cowboys nudge them forward. Your horse, whose name you still don't know because you're afraid to ask, groans beneath you. You ride out across the open range, watching as the sky turns from steel to gold. The land rolls endlessly, flat plains, low hills, the occasional distant stand of trees. It's beautiful in a stark, empty way, like someone painted a landscape and then scrubbed out all the detail. There are no fences. No signs. Just dust and the occasional skeleton of something that once had too many legs. As the morning unfolds, the talk turns, as it always does, to stories. Hank tells one about a ghost cow that leads herds off cliffs under full moons. Another cowboy swears he once met a bandit who robbed banks with a trained raccoon. The cook, Cookie, claims he saw a UFO over Amarillo, though he doesn't call it that. Just, a light what didn't belong. Storytelling is currency out here. It passes the time, sure, but it also says, I've been here. I've seen things. I survived. Even if what they saw was a snake in their boot and what they survived was boredom. That night, camp is made beside a shallow creek. You rinse your face in water so cold it could kill bacteria just by looking at it. Cookie serves up something called cowboy stew, which is mostly old beans in a new arrangement. After dinner, someone pulls out a harmonica. The tune is slow, off-key, and oddly perfect. A few cowboys start humming. One even sings, a soft, low baritone that rumbles like a train in the distance. And then Wiley leans toward you and says, ever heard of the Lost Dutchman mine? You shake your head. He grins. Gold mine, supposedly cursed. People keep disappearing when they try to find it. Whole search parties, gone. Folks say the spirits protect it. Quirky historical tidbit, the legend of the Lost Dutchman's gold mine is one of the West's most enduring mysteries. Centered in Arizona's Superstition Mountains, it's inspired treasure hunters for generations, and claimed more than a few lives. Historians still argue whether it ever existed at all, or if it was just a clever invention by an aging prospector who wanted to be remembered. The campfire crackles as Wiley's story grows taller. You hear words like ancient Apache curse, map hidden in a dead man's journal, and glowing eyes in the rocks. You're 80% sure he's making half of it up, but it doesn't matter. You're hooked. The sky above you explodes with stars. Not just a few, millions. The Milky Way stretches overhead like spilled flour across a velvet table. No city lights. No traffic. Just space. You lie back on your bedroll again, stiff but content. The night is alive with sounds, the snap of twigs, distant howls, the occasional grunt of a sleeping cow. Somewhere, a whippoorwill sings its lonely tune. And you think, this is it. The part they don't tell you about in history class. The silence. The space. The way the fire makes shadows flicker across tired faces. The way your heartbeat slows when you're not being chased, or shot at, or fed questionable stew. It's almost peaceful. You wrap the blanket tighter around you and close your eyes. Tomorrow will bring more dust, more aches, more arguments with your horse. But for now, under the wide, starlit sky, you are small. You are still. And for the first time in a while, you are absolutely, totally present. Just don't forget to check your boots for scorpions before sunrise. You're jolted awake by a sharp whinny and the unmistakable sound of panic, hoofbeats, shouts, a loud crack. Your heart races as you sit up, blinking against the breaking dawn. Stampede. You scramble to your feet, nearly tripping over your bedroll. Cowboys are already in motion, leaping onto horses, yelling commands, cracking whips. The cattle, spooked by something in the night, a coyote, a dream, who knows, have broken formation and are thundering across the open plain in a direction that is, predictably, not helpful. Your brain wants to run in the other direction. Your body, unfortunately, listens to Wiley, who rides past shouting, "Move! Ride with the flank! Turn M!" You fumble onto your horse, gripping the saddle like it might save your life, which, to be fair, it might. The animal snorts, annoyed to be suddenly essential, and then you're off, galloping through dust and chaos. Your hat flies off in the first 10 seconds. It doesn't matter. All that matters is stopping the herd before it hits a ravine, or a cliff, or just tears itself apart in blind terror. Riding alongside the stampede is like trying to outrun a freight train while also steering it. You shout. You wave your arms. At one point, you try whistling. None of the cows are impressed. But eventually, the combined efforts of the crew begin to work. The cattle slow, clump, and finally stumble into a grudging stop. You slump in the saddle, heart pounding, mouth full of dust, arms shaking. You've survived your first stampede. Fun historical fact, stampedes were the greatest nightmare of cattle drives. A single bolt could scatter a herd across miles of open land. Cowboys would risk their lives to ride alongside the chaos, turning the animals into a circle to slow them down. Historians still argue whether the infamous midnight stampede stories were exaggerated, or simply common enough to become legendary. Someone tosses your hat back to you. It's been trampled but still technically wearable. You nod in thanks. Cookie hands you a biscuit. Of course. The rest of the day is spent regrouping. You and the other riders count cows, mend fences, and try to forget that death very nearly trampled you into a personalized puddle. Wiley rides beside you at one point, chewing on something that may or may not be jerky. "You're still alive," he says. "That's a win." "Barely," you mutter. "Barely counts." You smile, despite everything. Your hands are blistered from the reins. Your thighs are threatening to unionize. But somehow, you feel steadier in the saddle than yesterday. The dust doesn't choke you as much. The sweat doesn't sting your eyes quite so badly. At midday, you break near a creek. You wash your face in the cool water, watching it ripple out and disappear downstream. A frog hops away from you like it knows something you don't. Always a comforting sign. As you dry your face on your sleeve, you hear a voice behind you. "Figured you'd have quit by now." It's Hank. He looks as grumpy as ever, arms crossed over his chest like he's daring you to contradict him. "I don't quit," you say, "because it's true and because you want it to be." He grunts. "Good. We got a river crossing tomorrow." You groan. Rivers were another bane of cattle drives. Not all rivers had bridges, and cows, despite being large and surprisingly buoyant, were not enthusiastic swimmers. Neither were most cowboys. Quirky historical tidbit: many herds had to swim across rivers like the Red or the Arkansas. More than a few cattle, and cowboys, didn't make it. Historians still argue whether the dangers were worth the economic payoff of trailing longhorns all the way to market. That evening, the mood is subdued. The fire crackles, and no one has energy for tall tales or harmonicas. Cookie tries a stew with new spices that taste suspiciously like burnt peppercorn and regret. You stare into the flames and think about how different this is from your life back home. There, your worries came with email alerts. Here, they come on 4 legs and weigh 1,500 pounds. Still, there's something deeply honest about this place. No pretenses. Just survival, day by day, hour by hour. You lie back under the stars once more, soar in all the usual places plus a few new ones. The sky is cloudy tonight, no stars, just a thick blanket of gray pressing down. The fire hisses as a drop of rain falls. Then another. You pull your blanket tight and brace for the night. Wet. Cold. Cramped. But alive. You close your eyes and mutter a quick thanks to whatever cow decided not to trample you. And you try not to think about the river waiting for you tomorrow. It's barely dawn and already your boots are soaked. The rain that started as a drizzle last night became a full-blown downpour sometime around midnight, turning the ground to slippery clay and your bedroll into a sponge. Your teeth chatter as you saddle your horse with fingers that barely bend. Even the cows look irritated, standing in the muck with their ears twitching and their eyes narrowed like they've decided this is all your fault. Time to move, Hank barks, not bothering with sympathy. We've got a river to cross. You mutter something unkind under your breath, but no one hears you over the squelch of 100 hooves trudging through wet soil. The herd sets off at a slow, slopping pace. You ride with your shoulders hunched and your hat pulled low, rain dripping off the brim in a steady rhythm. The scenery blurs into grays and browns, sky and land bleeding together in the storm. An hour later, you see it, the river. It's not particularly wide, but the recent rain has made it fast, churning like a pot of angry stew. There's no bridge. No ferry. Just a low crossing marked by broken wooden posts that vanish into the current. Cows go first, Hank says, spitting into the mud. Then riders. You look at the water and swallow hard. The cows aren't thrilled either. They sniff the river, shuffle nervously, moo in protest. But eventually, one brave beast charges forward, its legs churning as it pushes into the current. More follow. Soon, the river is filled with bobbing horns and thrashing hooves. Your turn comes faster than expected. You guide your horse to the bank, trying to remember every movie you've ever seen about this exact scenario. Unfortunately, none of them mention what to do if your horse hates water and you never really learn to swim. The moment the hooves hit the water, your horse snorts and jerks sideways. You cling to the saddle, heart pounding, trying not to slide off into the river. The current is strong, stronger than you expected. For a terrifying moment, you're certain this is how it ends, swept downriver, still wearing Charlie's boots. But somehow, your horse finds footing, plowing through the water with grim determination. Water splashes up to your knees. Your hands go numb. Your brain screams, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And then, miraculously, you're on the other side. Soaked, shivering, but alive. Quirky historical tidbit: cowboys often had to swim across rivers with their horses and gear, sometimes even driving the cattle from the water with loud whoops or cracking whips. A common trick was to tie belongings to the saddle horn and strip down to essentials, hoping to stay afloat. Historians still argue whether more deaths occurred from drowning or dysentery, but either way, rivers were deeply unpopular. Wiley rides up behind you, drenched and grinning. You didn't drown. Congrats. Didn't know that was optional, you gasp. He laughs. Out here, everything is optional. Including breathing. You squelch your way back into the line. Everything you own is soaked, your coat, your hat, your dignity. Cookie waves a soggy ladle at you as you pass. Soup tonight, he says. Real watery. Just like you. The rest of the day is a slog. Mud cakes your boots, slows the herd, and turns every step into a battle. At one point, your horse refuses to go forward and just stands, sulking in the rain, while you negotiate like a traveling preacher trying to save its soul. By sunset, the storm begins to break. The clouds peel away in long gray strips, revealing a burnished orange sky that stretches endlessly westward. The light is soft and golden, painting the wet grass in copper and rose. For a brief moment, everything is still. You dismount with a groan and rub your knees, which now feel like antique door hinges. The campfire sputters back to life, and someone sings a slow, mournful tune about a girl named Clara, who married a horse thief and now makes moonshine in Kansas. You sit beside Wiley, who hands you something wrapped in oilcloth. Dry socks, he says. From the supply bag. Use them before they get stolen. You thank him, eyes stinging, not from emotion, but from sheer relief. You peel off your wet boots and socks and wiggle your toes near the fire. They're a bit blue. A bit wrinkly. A bit proud of themselves. You think about the river, the mud, the panic. You think about how 2 days ago you were barely managing not to fall off the horse, and now here you are, river crossed, half drowned, and still riding. You're not sure if you're becoming a cowboy or just adapting like an extremely nervous lizard. Either way, you're learning. That night, you sleep with dry socks on your feet and your hat over your face. The rain is gone, replaced by frogs croaking somewhere out of sight. The cattle snore. So do the men. And for the first time, you sleep the way only exhausted people do, like the dead, but with dreams of cows. You wake to the sound of arguing. Not loud, angry arguing, but the kind that comes from two very tired people who have been stuck with each other for too long and are now debating, in great detail, whether a coyote can carry off a calf or if that was just Carl's excuse for losing one. You sit up, stretch, and immediately regret it. Every muscle screams. Your spine crackles like an old porch. Your arms feel like they've been used to stir concrete. But the socks are still dry, and that's your new standard for a good morning. The herd is already moving by the time you finish chewing another indescribable breakfast. Today's flavor, hot, brown, and vaguely potato adjacent. Cookie grunts at you and hands you a strip of jerky that bends slightly when you wave it, like a tired flag. You mount up and fall in line, riding near the rear this time, where the stragglers wander and the smell is most instructive. You're learning to read cows like books now, which ones limp, which ones fight, which ones drift like distracted toddlers. You start noticing the personalities. There's one steer that stops at every bush like it's admiring the scenery, and another that glares at you constantly like you personally insulted its mother. Mid-morning, a shout goes up. Rider coming. Everyone halts. Heads turn. Hands go to rifles. You spot the figure on the ridge, alone, on horseback, silhouetted against the sun like something from a dime novel. The rider comes closer. Slowly. Cautiously. They're wearing a long coat and a hat pulled low, face hidden behind dust and shadow. Hank rides forward to meet them. You hear murmurs, rustler. Scout. Bounty hunter. Eventually, Hank waves the rider in. Turns out it's a woman. Early 30s, confident posture, a rifle slung across her back and a no-nonsense expression that says she has zero time for anyone's nonsense, yours included. Her name's Clara. She's been trailing your group for a day, hoping to join the drive up north. She knows cattle, she says, and doesn't mind hard work or bad coffee. No one argues. You don't argue either. Clara rides beside you for a stretch that afternoon, silently observing. You nod in greeting. She nods back. After a while, she says, "Your reins are twisted." You look down. They are. She reaches over, adjusts them in 2 smooth moves. "You'll wreck your hands holding them like that," she adds, before pulling ahead. And just like that, you're a student again. Cowboys, you've learned, aren't just rugged loners chewing on grass and looking cool. They're rough-edged instructors. Watchers. Testers. They wait to see if you're going to quit, or break, or quietly disappear in the night. And when you don't, they start showing you things. By late afternoon, Clara's giving you quiet corrections. Wiley's teaching you to coil your rope properly. Hank lets you help count the cattle during the break. You miss one. He tells you with a snort, if you lose count, just say, about 100. Works every time. That evening, at camp, you get your first proper cowboy chore, night watch. It sounds important. It is. You're responsible for making sure the cows don't wander, stampede, or get eaten by anything with more teeth than sense. You get a lantern, a whistle, and the advice, if something's out there, try yelling before you shoot it. Saves bullets. You walk the perimeter, boots soft in the grass, stars bright overhead. The herd rustles and shifts, the animals dozing but never fully relaxed. One lets out a loud, unhappy moo and farts simultaneously. You do not investigate further. At one point, you think you hear something. A rustle. A soft snort from the brush. You freeze, hand on your whistle. You whisper, "Wiley, just in case." Nothing answers. You exhale. Just a rabbit. Or a fox. Or a very stealthy coyote. Either way, you're still alive. That counts. Fun historical tidbit, cowboys worked in shifts overnight, patrolling the herd and singing to calm the cattle. The songs were often slow, repetitive, and strangely beautiful, meant more to soothe than entertain. Historians still argue whether the melodies were borrowed from African American spirituals, Irish ballads, or just made up under the stars with nothing else to do. You hum a little, just to try it. It works. The cows settle. By the time your shift ends, the sky is already beginning to tint gray-blue at the edges. Dawn again. Another day of dust and hooves and stiff limbs. But also, oddly, another day you're looking forward to. As you settle into your blanket, Clara walks past. "Good watch," she mutters. No cows missing. No gunshots. You're improving. You smile into the darkness. The prairie is cold. The fire's almost out. Your back still hurts. But you've made it through another day. You've earned your place, if only just barely. And tomorrow, you'll do it again. You don't remember falling asleep, but you remember waking up, because it's the first time someone actually wakes you up. Now. It's Hank, looming like a thundercloud with a mustache. Wiley's down with a fever. You're riding point. Your brain tries to protest. Point rider? Already? That's the front of the herd. That's the job for someone who knows where they're going, and ideally what a cow looks like from the front, not just the rear. But your mouth just says, "All right." Because out here, hesitation smells like weakness. And cows can smell fear. Probably. You swing into the saddle. The sun's not even up yet, and already the herd is waking, snorting, shifting, mooing low like they all had the same bad dream. Cookie hands you half a biscuit on your way out. "For luck," he says. You eat it anyway, because the last time you turned down food, you nearly fainted during a stampede. You ride to the front of the herd as the sky warms to pale gold. Clara's already there, waiting. She nods at you, then at the trail ahead. Just keep 'em straight. They get jumpy, sing something. You blink. Sing. Anything slow. Doesn't matter if it's good. You try to imagine what playlist would soothe thousands of cows and come up with exactly one answer, humming the same 4 bars of something vaguely lullaby-like until your own brain turns to mush. But it works. The cows lumber forward in semi-obedient clusters. You ride slowly, eyes on the horizon, adjusting your pace with the terrain. The land stretches out in soft rises, sparse trees, sun-bleached rocks, little yellow wildflowers growing where the cows haven't trampled them yet. It's beautiful, in that, might still contain rattlesnakes, way. By midday, you hit your first obstacle. Not bandits. Not wolves. Not even weather. Just a cow. A very stubborn, very large steer has decided it no longer believes in going forward. It plants itself in the middle of the trail like a living roadblock, snorting defiantly. You dismount, approach it slowly, talk to it like it's a grumpy uncle at Thanksgiving. Nothing. Clara rides up. Need help? I think he's unionizing. She clicks her tongue. Watch and learn. She rides behind the steer, taps its hindquarters with her boot, and mutters something deeply unprintable. The steer flinches, then reluctantly moves. See, she says. Assertive language. You get back in the saddle, adding motivational swearing to your growing skill set. The rest of the day passes in a steady rhythm, ride, nudge, sing, avoid stepping in things. You pass an abandoned shack around mid-afternoon. Just 4 walls, half a roof, and a rusted cooking pot still hanging on a nail. Clara eyes it. Old settler site, she says. Probably tried farming. Soil out here's too thin. You nod, wondering what happened to them. Moved on. Given up. Or something worse. Quirky historical tidbit, thousands of settlers tried their luck farming the frontier during the 1800s. Many underestimated just how hard the land could be. Crop failure, water scarcity, isolation, all common. Historians still argue whether the Homestead Act was a golden opportunity or a slow-motion trap disguised as free land. The sun sets red-orange behind you, and the air cools fast. At camp, you help with the firewood and even patch a ripped saddlebag under Wiley's grumpy supervision. He's feeling better, sick, but bossy. A promising sign. Cookie makes trail chili, which seems to include beans, jerky, coffee grounds, and possibly a horseshoe. It's spicy. Or maybe just hot in a way that feels personal. Afterward, Clara hands you a whetstone. Your knife's dull, she says. Couldn't cut butter with that thing. You take it and spend the next hour slowly sharpening the blade while Wiley talks your ear off about the time he accidentally chased a cow in the wrong direction for an hour and nobody noticed because the cow was real polite about it. The fire dies low. The stars blink out slowly, hidden by a low cover of clouds. But inside the group, something's shifted. You're no longer the new one. You're just one of them. You take the second night watch. It's quiet. Peaceful. The cows are calm, curled into uneven mounds of warmth. One calf snores, loudly. You grin and hum softly, not a song you know, just something slow, made for moonlight and worn boots. And as you walk the edge of the camp, lantern swinging in rhythm, it hits you, you've come further than you thought. Not just miles, but inward. The you who woke up in that hayloft with sore ribs and confused feet would never believe this. But it's real. You adjust your hat, pull your coat tighter, and keep walking. Dawn breaks with a bitter wind, the kind that slices through your coat and makes your teeth ache. You groan before even opening your eyes, because your spine has finally turned in its resignation letter. And your shoulders? They've gone on strike. But today is different. Today, you're crossing into outlaw country. You hear the phrase at breakfast. Hank mentions it in passing, between mouthfuls of biscuit and spoonfuls of something gray and wet that might be gravy. Just a heads up, he says, like he's warning you about a pothole. We're passing through territory that don't care much for law. You pause mid-bite. Define don't care. He shrugs. Last time I rode this trail, someone took a shot at the sky just to make a point. Wiley chimes in, eyes gleaming. Yeah, and the point was, get lost. You swallow your mouthful with more caution than usual. Outlaws, you've learned, are not just myths from dusty storybooks. They're real, and they're not always dramatic like the movies make them out to be. Some are former ranchers, run out after a land dispute. Some are just desperate. Some like the freedom that comes from being unwanted everywhere. You pack camp quickly. The herd's uneasy today, nervous, twitchy. The cows can feel it too. They move faster than usual, snorting and bunching together like they prefer to not get robbed, thanks very much. You're near the front again, flanking left with Clara. Her eyes scan the ridgeline constantly. You ever seen an outlaw, you ask, quietly. She doesn't look over. Only the ones that got caught. Were they scary? She shrugs. Not really. Just tired. Most of them don't live long enough to get scary. That sticks with you. The landscape changes. The trees grow denser. The hills get rockier. You pass through narrow cuts in the land, easy places for ambushes. Everyone's quiet now. Even Wiley. Then, a whistle. Sharp. From the hills. Your heart leaps into your throat. Hands go to rifles. The herd shifts uneasily. Hold, Hank says. You freeze. Another whistle. 2 short bursts this time. Like a code. You scan the ridge. Nothing but rocks, brush, and shadows. Clara pulls her rifle into her lap. Wiley grips his lasso tighter than necessary. A full minute passes. Then 2 men on horseback emerge from the trees, not fast, not slow, just present. They ride casually, but with a tension that says they're used to being watched. One is thin, with a beard that looks like it's grown out of spite. The other wears a red kerchief over his face. They stop a few yards off. Morning, one of them calls. Nobody answers. The man nods. Just passing through. You got a big herd. We're not looking for trouble. Hank speaks, low and even. Neither are we. A beat. Any of y'all seen a bay mare with a white blaze? The outlaw asks. Went missing last week. We're looking for her. You all glance at each other. Clara shakes her head. No horse like that in our group. The outlaw nods again. All right then. Y'all be safe now. And just like that, they turn and ride off, disappearing into the trees. Nobody breathes until they're completely gone. Could have gone bad, Wiley mutters. Real bad. Clara nods. They didn't want to fight today. You ride on, heart still drumming like a jittery telegraph. For the next hour, everyone scans the horizon like it's trying to lie to them. Here's a strange truth about the West: violence was always waiting, like a song stuck behind your ribs. But most days, it didn't come. Most days, people just nodded, lied politely, and moved on. But when it did come, it came fast and without warning. Quirky historical tidbit: many outlaws weren't glamorous gunslingers. They were teenagers, displaced farmers, or Civil War veterans with nowhere else to go. Some robbed trains, some held up banks, some just rustled cattle and ran. Historians still argue whether the line between outlaw and lawman was ever really that clear in the West. Some sheriffs had longer criminal records than the people they jailed. By afternoon, the trail opens up again. The trees thin. The rocks fall away. You pass an old homestead, burned down, long ago. Just a chimney and a few blackened posts remain. No one speaks. The message is clear. Someone once tried to make a life here. Now it's just ashes and wind. The camp that night is quiet. You all eat in near silence, eyes still flicking toward the hills. The fire crackles. Cookie tells a soft story about a boy who once tried to pan for gold with a frying pan and accidentally caught a frog instead. You chuckle. Clara looks at you. You held up well today, she says. Even when things got twitchy. I was mostly panicking internally, you admit. Good, she replies. Means you're human. That night, sleep comes slowly. You lie under your blanket, staring up at a sky filled with stars too numerous to count and too far to touch. You think about the men in the trees. You think about the silence before the whistle. You think about the fact that, out here, safety is mostly an illusion, and survival is a daily choice. But you also think about how you made it through. Again. And in the West, that's more than most can say. You wake up to the gentle clatter of tin cups and the low murmur of voices trying not to sound worried. That's how you know something's wrong, when people are quiet on purpose. You sit up and spot Hank and Clara hunched over a map near the fire. Wiley stands nearby, arms folded, chewing a piece of bark that he probably thinks makes him look wise. Cookie's got his ladle in one hand and a frying pan in the other, and both are still. Even the cows are oddly subdued, as if they've all agreed to let you have this moment of pre-alarm peace. What's going on, you ask. Hank looks up. Flooded trail. We've gotta go around. Can't we just wait it out? Nope. Water's too high and moving fast. Another storm like last week, it'd wipe the whole herd. Gotta push west and find another pass. West. Off the map trail. Off the predictable route. Into a part of the terrain where, as Wiley helpfully puts it, you could disappear and even the vultures wouldn't bother finding you. So you pack up, tighten your saddle, and ride. At first, it's not too bad. The land is open and rolling, the grass tall and gold under the sun. Butterflies flit across your path. It's almost nice. And then the trees start. Thick stands of cottonwood and pine close in like green jaws. The air cools. Shadows stretch long even though it's midday. The cows hate it. You hate it. Your horse really hates it. Branches snag at your hat, your coat, your confidence. Keep moving, Clara calls, pushing a group of reluctant steers around a fallen log. You do your best. It's slow going, cows don't like trees. Can't see predators. Can't see each other. They bunch and scatter again. Every time you round up a group, another one's wandered off like it's sightseeing. It takes all day to move 2 miles. You pass old things in the forest, broken fence posts, a rusted shovel half buried in moss, the skeletal remains of what might have once been a wagon wheel. This was someone's land once. You wonder who, and why they left. Or if they ever had the chance to. That night, you camp in a clearing ringed by tall trees. The fire crackles small and sharp, the flames trying their best to keep out the damp. No one says it out loud, but you all sleep a little closer together. You volunteer for first watch, mostly because sitting still sounds better than moving right now. The forest sounds different than the open plains. Softer. More crowded. You hear owls. Crickets. Something that might be a possum. Something else that might be a bear. You hum, just to prove you're the scariest thing out here. And that's when you see it, movement at the edge of the trees. You freeze. It's not a cow. Too quiet. Not one of your crew, they're all asleep. It moves again. A shape. A figure. You stand slowly, hand on the rifle near your bedroll. Who's there, you say, not too loud. Not aggressive. Just, firm. Silence. Then, just passin' through, a voice says. Female. Calm. Confident. From the shadows steps a woman with a long coat and a satchel slung over one shoulder. She wears high boots, a wide-brimmed hat, and a revolver at her hip. Her hair is gray at the temples but her eyes are sharp. I'm a trader, she says. Herbs. Tools. News. You glance at the others. No one stirring. It's just you and her and the firelight. What kind of news? She crouches near the fire and opens her satchel. Inside, bundles of dried roots, tins of powder, a few tools, a paper-wrapped bundle she hands you like a gift. You unwrap it. Inside is jerky, better than anything Cookies managed in a week. There's talk of war in the south, she says. Railroad men fighting over land. Some towns gone ghost over it. Is it coming here? She shrugs. Always does. Eventually. Then she stands, pulls her coat tighter, and tips her hat. You'll make it, she says. You've got survivor eyes. You blink. How do you know? She smiles. You're awake, ain't you? And then she's gone, melted into the trees like she was never there. You sit by the fire, chewing the jerky, trying to decide if that was real or if you finally lost your grip on reality somewhere between stampedes and soup disasters. In the morning, you don't tell the others. Part of you wants to keep it, a secret moment, a story that sounds too strange to share just yet. Quirky historical tidbit: the West was full of independent traders, especially women, who operated outside of towns and rode between camps, settlements, and remote ranches offering medicine, supplies, and sometimes critical information. Historians still argue how influential they were, but their existence helped knit together an otherwise disconnected frontier. The trees thin by midday, and you finally break through into open land again. Everyone cheers, even the cows. You look back at the woods. Still. Watching. You ride on. But that night, you tuck the bundle of remaining jerky deeper into your bedroll, and keep an eye on the shadows, just in case they decide to speak again. The land changes again. That's the thing no one tells you about the West, how many faces it wears. Just when you think you've figured it out, it shifts, new sky, new dust, new rules. This time, it's rock. Endless, wind-carved, sun-baked rock. You leave the tree line behind and ride into a world of red stone and dry wind. The sun hangs low and hot, baking everything in its path. The dirt turns rusty, the air thin and still. It's beautiful in a brutal kind of way, like nature carved it while furious and then forgot to smooth the edges. Wiley squints up at the cliffs. Welcome to bandit heaven, he mutters. No trees, no cover, no way to run. You laugh, lightly. Until you realize he's not joking. Hank rides ahead, scanning the ridges. Keep tight, he calls back. Watch the sky. You ask Clara what he means. She points upward. Ambushes don't just happen in canyons. They happen above you. You start riding hunched, as if shrinking your profile will make a difference. The herd is spooked again, probably because the rocks seem to echo every hoofbeat back at you in a chorus of ghostly replies. Around mid-morning, you come across an old campsite. A ring of stones. Burned bones in the center. An empty canteen. Nothing else. It's not recent, but it's not ancient either. Nobody comments. You ride on. A mile later, the trail splits. One side leads over a narrow rock bridge, barely wide enough for a cow. The other drops into a canyon filled with sharp turns and no visibility. Pick your poison, Clara says. Hank chooses the canyon. He doesn't explain why, but you think it's because falling off a cliff is slightly worse than getting surprised around a corner. It's tight going. The cows bunch up, complain loudly, and one manages to wedge itself sideways between two boulders like it's trying to make a point about personal space. You and Wiley manage to free it using a lot of yelling, creative rope work, and what might be the frontier equivalent of a cow-sized three-point turn. Eventually, you emerge into a wide basin, a bowl of red earth, ringed with stone. There's a trickle of water here, barely a stream, but enough for the cows to drink and for Cookie to squint at it and declare it, probably not full of bugs. You camp there. The night sky is immense. The stars look closer here, brighter, harder. The moon is a perfect coin, cold and watching. Clara sits beside you, sharpening her knife. You ever think about leaving, you ask. She doesn't look up. Sometimes. But I wouldn't know what to do. There's other work. Towns. Shops. She finally meets your eyes. Sure. And there's walls. Expectations. Rules that only apply to some people. You nod slowly. She continues. Out here, it's rough. But at least it's honest. If someone doesn't like you, they tell you. Or shoot you. Either way, you know where you stand. You fall quiet. The fire pops. Somewhere out in the dark, something yips, a coyote, probably. Maybe not. Quirky historical tidbit, many women in the West chose the frontier precisely because it offered more freedom. Away from the social constraints of East Coast cities, they ran businesses, worked as sharpshooters, homesteaders, even outlaws. Historians still argue whether the West was more progressive or simply too desperate to be picky. After dinner, jerky stew, better than it sounds, Hank calls you over. You're on message duty tomorrow. You blink. Message? He hands you a slip of paper. We're close to the next supply post. Need someone to ride ahead, check in, and bring back news. Think you can do that? You look at the paper. It's a list of supplies, some scribbled notes, and a little drawing of a coffee pot with a frown drawn on it. Cookie's edition, clearly. Yeah, you say. I can do that. Leave at first light. Ride fast, but not dumb. Don't talk to strangers unless they talk first. You nod. What if they shoot first? Duck. You pack light that night, just your canteen, the note, and a biscuit wrapped in cloth. Wiley gives you a nod. Clara hands you a fresh cartridge roll. Cookie gives you a pat on the back and mutters something about coffee being a sacred right. You don't sleep much. The rocks hum with wind. The fire dies low. Your horse chews thoughtfully on its reins. You're riding solo tomorrow. In outlaw country. On a mission. You should be scared. You are scared. But deep down, beneath the nerves and the dried mud and the lingering scent of cow, you feel something else. Ready. You leave before sunrise. The sky's still asleep, bruised with navy and charcoal, and the stars are doing their last shimmer before retreating for the day. You ride out alone, the message tucked into your coat, your saddle creaking like it's trying to say, "You sure about this?" Your horse snorts. You both know this trail won't be friendly. The landscape is still pure rock and dust, like the world forgot how to grow anything. The trail is barely more than 2 wagon ruts, winding between low cliffs and dry washes that look suspiciously like good places to get ambushed. You hum quietly, not a song, just noise, because silence makes your heart race faster. You're officially a messenger now. It's not glamorous. No one claps. There's no dramatic music. Just you, your horse, and a growing appreciation for the concept of flat land with good visibility. By mid-morning, you see smoke. Not fire smoke, cooking smoke. Thin, curling into the air ahead. Your stomach clenches. Could be a friendly homestead. Could be trouble. You slow your horse, dismount, and approach on foot, keeping low like Clara taught you. You peek over a rocky rise and spot a small camp, one tent, one fire, and one man, heating beans in a dented pot. His rifle's lying nearby, but not in his hands. He's old, gray beard, hunched shoulders, and whistling softly like someone who hasn't seen another soul in days. You step into view. Hello. He looks up, startled, but not hostile. You with a drive? You nod. Northbound. They sent me ahead to the post. He gestures for you to come closer. You're near. Half a day's ride. Don't miss the trail fork, there's no sign. You sit by the edge of his fire. He hands you half a can of beans without asking. You don't refuse it. That's considered rude and suspicious out here. Long ride alone, he says. First time, you admit. He studies you. Wouldn't know it. You ride like someone who's been out here a while. You smile into your spoon. You've earned that. He tells you he's a trapper, semi-retired. Too many new folks chasing gold. Not enough beaver left. He chuckles. Even the animals are tired. He offers you water. You refill your canteen. Before you leave, he points to your saddlebag. Mind your letter. Things have a way of not making it where they should. You thank him, mount up again, and ride on. The rest of the trail is quieter. Hills give way to open land. Sagebrush. Distant thunderheads building to the south, like an ominous afterthought. Eventually, you spot it, a squat, dusty building nestled by a dry creek. The supply post. It's not much. Just one low building with a porch, a water trough, and a horse tied out front. But to you, it's a cathedral. A lighthouse. A miracle. Inside, it smells like tobacco, leather, and a faint whiff of kerosene. A man behind the counter looks up. You with Hank's drive? You nod, hand him the note. He squints at it, mutters something about Cookie's handwriting, and reaches for a ledger. You're early. I got motivated. He grins. Well, that'll die off eventually. Coffee's over there. You pour yourself a tin mug of something that tastes like scorched dirt and old socks, but it's hot and free. He hands you a reply note, a bundle of new cartridges, and, miraculously, a small tin labeled dried apples. You tell Cookie that was the last tin in this territory, he says. And I better not hear any complaints. You ride out after resting just long enough to get feeling back in your knees. This time, the return trip feels faster. Familiar. You recognize landmarks. Avoid the long route. Your horse trots easier now, sensing you're heading home, or what passes for home these days. Quirky historical tidbit, supply posts were the lifeline of cattle drives and frontier travel. These tiny way stations offered everything from food to ammunition to local gossip. Historians still argue whether they were more valuable as trade centers or as social hubs, one place where news traveled faster than the horses that brought it. You crest the final hill as the sun begins to dip. The camp comes into view, the fire, the scattered gear, Cookie waving a ladle like a victorious general. You made it. Wiley jogs up to meet you, grinning. Well, look at you. Didn't die or get robbed. That's 2 wins. You hand over the reply note and the tin of apples. Cookie snatches it like it's holy relic. I will not forget this, he says solemnly. You get an extra scoop of beans tonight. Clara nods at you. Clean ride? You shrug. Met a trapper. Almost missed the trail. Didn't fall off anything. Good enough. Good enough, she agrees. That night, the fire feels warmer. The stories come easier. The beans actually taste like they contain spices. You sit a little taller. Sleep a little deeper. Because today, you did it alone. Tomorrow, you ride with the herd again. But tonight, you're the one who went ahead, faced the empty trail, and came back with news. And in the West, that means something. The sky is an ocean of soft gold when you wake, warm for once instead of sharp and blue. The herd moves slow this morning, not tired, just content. Even the cows seem to understand something's different. Because today's the last push. The end of the drive lies just over the horizon, tucked in a dusty valley with rail lines stretching like metal fingers toward the east. You'll reach the cattle yard by dusk, if all goes well. And after that, well, after that's a mystery you're starting to feel brave enough to solve. You saddle up, boots worn to your shape now, hat sitting just right, hands calloused in all the right places. Hank gives the signal, and the drive rolls forward like thunder muted by distance. Clara rides beside you for most of the morning. Neither of you says much. You've reached the kind of silence that only comes after you've said all the important things without ever saying them out loud. Eventually, she says, "You know you could stay on. Ride with us again." You don't answer right away. You look out at the land, the slow hills, the wandering clouds, the specks of cows moving like a living wave across the earth. Maybe you could. By midday, the signs of town begin to appear. Fence posts. Flattened wagon ruts. A child's boot sitting forgotten in the dirt. The trees thin, replaced by grassland scorched and trampled by 1,000 other herds. You pass a line of bleached skulls mounted on sticks, grim trophies or maybe just frontier decor. Hard to say. Then the whistle. Far ahead, thin but real, the high cry of a steam engine. You freeze for a moment, then grin like a fool. The cows hear it too and moan in response, sensing the journey's end. You crest a final ridge and there it is. The holding pens, the rail lines, a cluster of buildings that could almost be called a town. People move between them, buyers, ranchers, a few unlucky locals who get to clean up after all this is done. The air smells like manure, hot iron, and money. Wiley cheers from somewhere behind you. Clara just exhales, deep and long, like she's been holding that breath since you left the last town. The herd is pushed into the pens. Gate slams. Dust rises. Cows complain. But it's done. No stampedes. No ambushes. No major losses. Hank pats his horse. Another one finished. He turns to you. Not bad for a greenhorn. You smirk. I prefer the term, cow savvy adjacent. He actually laughs, a short bark of approval, then tosses you a coin. For a bath. You smell like achievement. And also old soup. You watch as the others disperse. Clara leading a horse toward the stable, Wiley arguing with a man about whether the town's one tavern counts as a real saloon, and Cookie swearing at the freight clerk over a crate of flour that appears to have been replaced with sand. And then you realize you have a choice. You could ride out tomorrow, with the crew. You could take a job in town. You could go east, board a train, vanish back into wherever you came from. The West doesn't tell you what to do. It just opens the gate and says, go on then. Quirky historical tidbit, many cowhands never rode more than a few drives. Some stayed on. Others vanished, into gold camps, saloons, homesteads, or the silence of nowhere. Historians still argue what happened to the vast majority of them, because the West didn't keep neat records. It just swallowed names and spit out legends. You find a bench and sit. The sun's setting now, low and lazy, the sky a wash of orange and lavender. You take off your hat, wipe your forehead, and close your eyes. You remember the first day, hay in your mouth, boots that didn't fit, hands that blistered just from holding reins. You think about the saloon, the sheriff, the long trail, the quiet watches, the outlaw country, the rider in the trees. You think about how scared you were. And how scared you still are. But differently now. Because this fear doesn't paralyze you anymore. It drives you. You're a part of something older than maps. A thread woven into a tapestry of dust and hoofbeats and whispered songs under the stars. You're a cowboy. Maybe not a perfect one, but a real one. And as the last light fades and the world turns soft and slow around you, you smile, quiet, steady, full. Because you made it. Because you're still here. Because now you get to choose what comes next. The stars return, scattered like seeds across a velvet field. The night hums low with crickets and the distant hiss of steam. The camp's long gone now. No more clanging pots or shifting hooves or late-night stories murmured beside the fire. Just stillness. And you, breathing easy. Let the dust settle behind your eyes. Let the ache in your shoulders soften into memory. You don't need to hold the reins anymore. For now, everything waits. The road ahead will still be there in the morning. Maybe you'll ride out with Clara. Maybe you'll stay and help Hank count cattle. Or maybe you'll finally sit still, learn to make cookies awful stew a little less awful. The West doesn't mind. It's big enough for all of that, and more. You've done something hard. Something real. And the part of you that wasn't sure. That part is quieter now. Tired, maybe. But proud. So take one last deep breath. Let it out slow. The stars are keeping watch. The trail's behind you. And your story? It's just beginning. Now close your eyes, partner. You've earned your rest.